Hey, this is A. Ray Fuller, guitarist, music director, and they call me the Weeper. I'm in Los Angeles, California, and you're watching me on Jazz Across the Pond with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviews Reimagined. We have just been sitting there blown away, and I use the word blown away, with the most amazing cover of a classic Stevie Wonder track. The track was called If You Really Love Me. It's from an album from, believe it or not, I know it doesn't sound dated, from 18 years ago, and it still sounds as fresh and as beautiful today as the first day I ever heard it. Ladies and gentlemen, what can we say about this week's very, very special guest? Well, we could use so many superlatives, but we'd run out of them, to be honest with yourself, because they're so fabulous. They really, really are. Ladies and gentlemen, Jazz Across the Pond, Mr. G, myself, the Jazz Cat, we warmly, warmly welcome the man himself, Mr. A. Ray Fuller. Hi there.
Woohoo. Hey, guys. Oh, my gosh. What's up, Kevin? Mr. G.
Hey, Ray. It's long time, man.
Jazz
Long
Cats.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So even though that track from the album The Weeper is 18 years old, it sounds as fresh today as it did when it was first released. The first time I heard it. I'll tell you a story about the first time I heard it in a while. But this is the testament to one man. The man who played, who produced, who arranged, wrote 4 of the songs on the album. Ladies and gentlemen, Jazz Across the Pond, we warmly welcome Mr. A. Ray Fuller. Now, what can we say? Our researchers have worked so hard this week trying to find out little things about yourself, sir. And we've really worked hard. Now, you may not have realized it, but you've actually heard Mr. Ray Fuller before. Even if you've never heard of this album, go and get a copy of it. But even if you think well, I've never heard of this man before, you have. Because you would have heard Ray's powerful guitar on main stages, on platinum recordings with artists such as Whitney Houston, Earth, Wind and Fire, Anita Baker. Let me carry on, Kevin, please. Luther Vandross, Maze, Tina Marie, Quincy Jones, George Nagy, and Bonnie James. I'm going to take a deep breath. Okay, Yolanda Adams, now, and many, many more. Ray, would you please tell our followers more about your childhood, your family, and we've done our homework initially. Apparently you taught guitar at the age of 7 by local musicians from a high-rise building on Chicago's tough South Side. Please tell us more.
Tough South Side is still tough. I don't know. Overseas, I don't know what you hear. Kevin probably hears some things better here in America, but it's still a tough place. I wasn't blessed to have my dad in my life at early age. He and my mom were teenagers. They came from tough environments in their home, right in their homes. And they were kind of runaways that met each other at a very early age. 14, I think he was 16. And they made me when she was 15. And then Anthony, then Andre. So, there's Anthony and Andre are fine and great, and I'm in love with music, and it was my vehicle to build a life. But it was tough with a teenage mom, and the dad was gone when I was 3. So, but I was my mom's best friend. We had the best grandparents you could ever have. And somewhere around that 7-year-old time, there was always a band in the basement. Great musicians. In fact, there's a name later you can probably come. The guy who played guitar was Junior, Reggie Boyd Jr., but Reginald Boyd Sr. taught Philip Church.
Oh, wow.
Who is a Chicago legend, but he was George Benson's other guitarist, but he's written songs, 25, no, that's another, that's 25 or 6, what's that song? 6 to 4 or something like, but anyway, one of George's hits and several of George's hits. And anyway, but he was taught by the guy that taught me, Reggie, a rocker. So it was a cool band in the basement, but I went down there because I could get snacks because my mom worked afternoons. We were in school during the day, and at 3, she'd go to work. So I was a caretaker, and I went down there so I could get snacks, and they played all my favorite songs from the day. Cream, Rush, Bad Company, what we come to know as the white soul, Traffic, and just all this great Pink Floyd, all this very passionate Doobie Brothers. And they taught me all of that. And my mom listened to, she had an eclectic taste. She loved that stuff, but she loved the Beatles. She loved she had the soul stuff. But she had a lot of other kind of music. And I was just blessed to be around all of that. And I do remember a record with Wes Montgomery and Jack McDuff. And she just listened to it all. And so awesome. It all went in here. And she didn't find out I played until 3 years. Maybe after 2 years. Someone was trying to court her and serenade her, and I asked, could I borrow his guitar?
Get out of here.
I was supposed to stay in our room. We all stayed in the same room, all my brothers. And I went out there, confident as heck, and said, can I borrow your guitar? And I played Hey Joe, and I went to the desert on a horse with no name, America song, and a couple other things, and he gave me that guitar that night.
How cool.
Nice.
Then he bought me a Univox amp, and he never tried to date my mother. He became my biggest advocate in my life.
Well, Ray, there is no doubt that the city of Chicago proved to be a fertile ground for your aspirations as a musician. As a teenager, I mean, not only did you do well picking up the guitar, but as a teenager, you toured and recorded with Chicago's soul icons, the Shy-Lites, and also the legendary Mr. Curtis Mayfield, who was originally with the Impressions.
Yes.
Now, Mayfield, I might add, brought prevalent themes of social awareness into the soul music, including his 1965 composition, People Get Ready, which he recorded with the Impressions.
Yes.
Now, Ray, I'm going to share a story that even Roger hasn't heard.
Ah.
It was the opening lyric to People Get Ready, which was People Get Ready, there's a train a-coming.
A-coming, yes.
And along with the city of Chicago's Soul Train, an American music dance television program back in the 70s, they were the inspirations to name my jazz Facebook page and my Spotify playlist, The Smooth Jazz Train.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Now 10 years later, in 9,999 songs, The Smooth Jazz Train is the #3 smooth jazz playlist on Spotify.
Wow.
And my playlist, The Smooth Jazz Train #2, is sitting in the 4th spot on Spotify.
Ooh.
And I might add, all 13 tracks from The Weeper are featured on my playlist. Now, I digress, but at age 19, you go on and tour with the Chicago-based group, the Staple Singers, and perform in South Africa, where you witnessed the oppression of apartheid firsthand.
Yes.
So, Ray, if you would, share with our viewers, how visceral was your experience performing in South Africa with the Staple Singers, given the environment at the time?
Well, I want to impart this in the very beginning. All of this is emotional stuff, including this beautiful interview and your beautiful introduction. It's very touching because you have done research, and it is a part of my whole life in building. So it's a great opportunity to have a moment to speak on these things. Going to South Africa with Pops and the girls, and Mavis is still here, right? Mavis Staples still going strong. It was an emotional experience, and I will get on South Africa, but I just want to touch on the beginnings of my meeting them, which was me giving Pops guitar lessons. Someone said there's a guy that wants some lessons, and we would like you to go over to this dentist's office, Ray, and in the back there, that's where you'll teach him. It was Pop Staples, and the guitar I played on most of those hits he had given to me in 1976.
Wow.
Or maybe 77. And so anyway, then they asked me to play with them. So based on my high school schedule, I could play with them. And then South Africa came up. And I graduated, and I was flip-flopping between them and the Shy-Lites, and I went to South Africa. Powerful. Sad, but also very beautiful. We had diplomatic immunity, so I wasn't affected by a lot of that. The country knew we were coming, and the promoters were beautiful people. They were a beautiful family called the Kwai Bells, who were white, and they went and took us to the innermost cities, including Soweto, but Pretoria, Botswana, dirt fields in many places. We did not make it to Sun City other than on a little casual trip. This was playing in the soccer field, baseball diamonds, and just places, and the people were there. And from what I understand, those promoters, eventually, a couple of them had gotten killed too. They just did the right thing. It was sad because coming out of the hotel, you walk around and everyone was looking down, and you saw not just the colored things like that, restrooms and stuff, but you saw the buses that left and the dirty buses that people got on to go out of town who had worked all during the week. Right. And then I took this walk one time, sorry for the long length of this one, but I took this walk in the city, and I went in this building, just any building, looked like an office building. And it wasn't. It was an apartment building that looked like an office in the front, but inside it looked like a project, like a inner city area project. And where the rails and the hotel, like a hotel kind of thing, where you see all the rooms and the different doors, and all these beautiful people stepped out of all of there and just looking around. I guess it's small inside there, but these were mixed, beautiful people, some of the most stunning male and female anatomy you ever wanted to see. But so they were considered colored, and they couldn't be out of there after 6 p.m. because no rights were afforded them. And that's my visceral experience, but it was so much love, warmth. We knew something got sent down deep in me that they didn't prepare us for, that we were going to make a difference. And this was in 81, by the way, and they wanted that book, Roots. Can you get me? People would sneak into me, getting in trouble. Can you get us Roots? They wanted hope. And the saddest thing I want to say was I saw magazines that we have here that also had some of the Black leaders of the day, Michael Jackson, Muhammad Ali. Those are the two that really stuck out, and they had them as bums, basically, or destroyed kind of people. And they were not. They were at their highest in America. So that was the apartheid experience. But the music, we just knew something took over us. We were just able to be the best. We were able to serve. Yeah. So, well,
I remember. I mean, you spoke about Roots because that was Alex Haley who wrote about his family. I mean, an amazing thing. Anyway, ironically, then 10 years later, you performed a freedom celebration for Nelson Mandela to 150. Ready? 150,000 fans. Where I'm talking
Were you there?
London's Wembley Arena, from the Wembley Stadium. I mean, that's about 4 hours drive from here. So I've been to Wembley many, many times. Performing artists such as Anita Baker, the late George Duke, and the late Natalie Cole. I mean, love Natalie Cole, amazing. So, Ray, would you tell us more about that incredible event, please?
So much fun. And Bonnie Raitt was there too.
Oh, wow.
And I can't remember the other girl. You said Natalie, but it was a girl from London. She was hot at the time, but we can look on the paperwork and find that. But amazing. We had the super band. We had Ricky Lawson on drums, and we had Paulino da Costa percussion. George was MD, but because I had just left Anita, I was still with Anita, I think, at the time, 91. Yeah, I was still with her and Whitney. So my schedule would always work out where I could keep both gigs. But I was her music director, so he said, "Well, you handle that. You handle that, and you handle Natalie. That Chicago girl. You handle that." And he handled everybody else. And we were a family, a band, but we knew we were there for something way bigger than we could ever. And it was 100. Remember, I don't know if you remember, but it was in the rain, 150,000 people. It was just so powerful. The Neville Brothers and everybody in the world was there, and we were just blown away. But we got up there and funked and jazzed, and Anita, and they all three girls, actually 4 girls, got on stage to get. Hey, it was girl power. Didn't even think about that. What's all those girls doing there? That was right, and it was just a great time. Freddie Washington on bass, just an awesome time.
Oh, incredible.
Just an awesome time. Just an awesome time. It was the real, it reminded me of South Africa in that it was 10 years later, but it was something happening bigger than, it wasn't a gig. You were part of a moment. Yeah.
Okay, what we're going to do now, we're going to just break from the interview just for a second. Kevin, you just hold that thought for a second there, because we are going to be, because I know our followers are going to be watching this and going, this Mr. Ray Fuller, we've got to get into him. And that we've already had a taste of a track from the fabulous album, The Weep. We're now just momentarily going to just break from the interview to play another track. As soon as we come back, don't switch your cameras off, because as soon as we come back, we're going to continue this wonderful conversation with the man himself. And I know Mr. G is on the edge of his seat waiting to ask another question. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Jazz Across the Pond with Mr. G, myself, the Jazz Cat, and Mr. A. Ray Fuller sat there. So it's The Weeper. They're going to play a track now called Portuguese Love. Fabulous track. And we'll be back with you momentarily to continue this conversation. Don't go away. We'll be straight back with you.
Welcome back to Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviews Reimagined with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. We've been listening to Portuguese Love, a Tina Marie composition beautifully arranged and performed by Mr. A. Ray Fuller on his phenomenal debut project, The Weeper. Well, Ray, after working in the music business for 25 years, you released The Weeper, which quickly received critical acclaim and international press as well as distribution. But what I really find amazing about the title is because the late, great legend, Mr. George Duke, laid the nickname The Weeper on you,
Right.
because you played so passionately on his tracks, especially on No Rhyme, No Reason. Now, George said the reason why he called you The Weeper was because as a guitarist, you were crying all over his tracks with your style, your Chicago style.
That's right.
Now, of course, George returned the favor on your composition, Speak Brother, with a fantastic keyboard solo.
Yeah.
So, Ray, with respect to Speak Brother, which you recorded with Mr. George Duke, you stated, I wanted to convey energy in something that says showtime.
Definitely.
Going through a lot of spiritual awakening, I wanted to use as many opportunities on this album as possible to express something a little deeper. Jazz and blues are deeply rooted inside me, but I also wanted this particular song to have a gospel feeling within the vocabulary. So Ray, if you would, tell us more about the influences of Chicago blues and gospel music in your compositions and arrangements, and also tell us a little bit more about your relationship with the late, great George Duke.
Well, Chicago, you know the Shy-Lights and all that, that's the soul part. And then we all know the Buddy Guys, and blues was always around us in Chicago. And jazz, a great place to live, Midwest, right? Melting pot of all these different things. Well, I also did a lot of gospel. And there were certain gospel producers and stuff. And in fact, at 16, we did this live recording that is still a standard in the gospel, one of those gospel classics called Gonna Rain. Every big church has done that song. And we recorded that with the Thompson Community Singers at 16. So I've always had an affinity and attachment with gospel music. When it came down to recording that particular song, actually, I was afraid to ask George to record. He had heard I was recording already. And he said, no, I'm there recording with him, but he had said, I hear you recording. How come you haven't called me? I said, George, as soon as I get a few dollars together, this is somebody who's employed me. I want to give him something. Isn't that the process here? Right. And even though we're personal friends, he always paid me well. And I wanted to pay him. I didn't want to insult him. And he said, Ray, half all the people in the camp today, or most of them, you brought here. I owe you. Ooh. You know, Branford did the same thing on another song. He had chomping at the bit and said, how come you haven't called me? I never saw it as as tools. These were people that loved me and they understood me. So George said, put me on something. And I said, well, I have some stuff in the car right now. And he said, well, the roads is set. Let's go. So him, Eric Zobler, knocked it out. He gave me that nickname. I was recording The Weeper because that day was a long day. I'd been recording with Boney James. Right. And then I moved over to something I had to do with Diane Reeves. And then I had to record on Boney stuff. And while I was in there with Boney, he gave a call and said, hey, Ray, can you get by here anytime tonight? I got this instrumental that I need to finish. And we're going to mix it tonight. So it was supposed to be an instrumental. I said, well, I got one more little session to do, and it was Everett Harps. And then I can get by there, but I'm going to be on fumes, and I was. So he said, well, it's just 4 chords. I got there, set up, start playing, and all I chose to do was just respond to the music. You know, it was an instrumental, so we're just, you know what we're saying. I guess I know, but we're just
floating with it.
I'm emoting. I'm
Yeah.
emoting around. The chords were beautiful and they were repetitive. So, and I know it was about 2 weeks later, he said, man, that song that you played on, he was crying all over my track. I'm going to call you the Weeper. And I remember checking with Boney James, what you think about a nickname? Boney's like, of course. And he said, a good friend like that, you should trust that. And turns out, he said, George said, I'm putting my life story on that. And that was one of his, big incidents in his life. He was in love with somebody.
Well, that is incredible, because only a few weeks ago, we interviewed the wonderful Paul Brown. And within the context, we were saying about how Paul Brown gave Bonnie James his name. So it's funny how, all these connections. Anyway, The Weeper, an album with songs by Stevie Wonder, the Isley Brothers, John Coltrane, and Ivan Lins. Now, Ivan Lins, the track that we just love on well, we love the whole album, but we love the track She Walks the Earth. Now,
isn't that beautiful?
a couple months ago, we had Jason Miles on, and of course, he actually recorded it with Sting singing on it and won a Grammy Award for that one.
Right.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a fabulous bunch with the lush Brazilian flavor to it.
Sure.
So, with so many thousand songs, and I must say, the 13 songs on it are brilliant.
Yeah.
How difficult was it selecting and choosing these 13 songs from the album The Weeper?
No, the good thing about, there's that daunting task of trying to construct a record, but I didn't need a whole helicopter view and know everything. So I was just going by inspiration. And I remembered this tune because Brenda Russell had called me and said, Ray, I got to go to New York and do a thing, and would you go with me? And we did a lot of her music. But when she did this one, you hear these one things and you go, I must have heard it before. So it was a classic. But this was beautiful. And I didn't hear Sting singing it. I had only heard her live version of this. And I was just like, I love this. I love that song. I have to record it. And so that was I did a little research, but I heard Sting's version and I heard the beautiful arrangement. And then I did mostly his type of arrangement on it because it was just perfect. But I just love the song. Every song on that record was because I just loved them. For 30 years, I love some of them. If you really love
very
them.
quickly, before I hand over to Kevin, I'm going to tell you a very quick story. And Kevin always goes, oh, here he goes. Okay. I don't with the Jazz Cat for no reason. Okay. Then I used to subscribe to a magazine. It's unfortunately no longer with us here in England. It's called The Blues and Souls and Jazz. Okay. And every week the album would come through. And I've actually it's actually a little bit discolored now. I found an article from it. In there, they always had the album of the month. And I would always go, right, okay. And it's the album of the month. It's got A. Ray Fuller, The Weeper, and it's the most wonderful write-up, a British jazz magazine about it.
Wow.
I went out and bought the album. Then a few days later, I had to do a 6-hour round trip to a big meeting I had to go to. And I took a pile of CDs. I put yours in the car, and it lasted me the whole 6 hours. I couldn't stop playing it.
Oh, man. Oh, my God.
All the other CDs, I brought them back in the house again. Yours, it went all the way there and back again. And I'll tell you what, that's how much I love the album. So, fabulous album. Kevin, question.
I am so honored.
What I wanted to say is, Ray, Roger and I are amazed how extremely connected you are within the music industry as a session guitarist for jazz, pop, and soul recordings, as well as the numerous television and film soundtracks that you've done. But in addition to the artists the Jazz Cat has shared, you've also worked with George Howard, the Commodores, Michael Paulo, Bobby Lyle, Kirk Whalum, Brian Simpson, Al Jarreau, Brian Culbertson, my man Wayman Tisdale, Greg Karukas, Dionne Warwick, Layla Hathaway, and Daryl Williams.
Always,
Just to add a few more to the list. Now, perhaps the key to your continued success across the music industry as a whole can be summed up by one of your quotes when you said, and I'm paraphrasing, when it comes to relationships, we should be present. We should be in the present time and not trying to see what I can get, but what I can give. Now, that's a strong adage that has served you very well. If you would share with our viewers what events in your life fostered the mindset, give and it will be given to you.
Oh my gosh.
It's
Everything,
a little Luke
Everything.
6:38 for you, but
everything. I don't know what I've even done to deserve all this. And your time is precious, and you spent it researching, and you've reminded me of some things I'd forgotten. When you mention those names, I can remember every session. And I wasn't ever walking in there like, I'm kicking butt. I got
Right.
this. And then after you, I'm going over here. It was never that. I always cared about what story or what they've dreamed and what their vision was, as much as I could. Not the technical part of it, but just their heart. Who are they? What do they want? When Rex Rideout called me and he said, "Ray, I'm doing this thing on Layla." And it was the Forever for Always. I recorded a lot of her old stuff too, but this was just special. But he had a dream and she had a dream. And I've always just felt that way. And if you think about it, 20 something years with George, and George Howard, by the way, introduced me to George Duke.
Oh,
Wow.
There's
What
a whole
connection.
nother. And he was mad that he was going to introduce me. This is the relationship part. And he was mad because he said, he's going to take you from me. And I was thinking, I'm not yours. I'm not yours. I love you. You're my brother. And I never felt good enough to play with any of these people.
Oh, Ray.
right.
No. We're creating, Kevin. We're creating, Roger. And they George never told me what to play. He didn't even want to be around me. When George Howard brought me there to record, he said, "You want me to leave?" I said, "No, I'm excited to meet you. You got ideas. I want to know." He said, No. You need to be by yourself. I can tell. So I can't explain anything. I'm like I did that record, like I did those sessions showing up, like we flew to Florida, and 2 hours later we recorded "I Will Always Love You." I didn't, I was just more about the tummy ache or my pants are too tight or whatever. And I wish I had practiced more or at all. So I can't explain it. Like I did that record, I was just honest. And to hear those words, and you guys are such the sweetest things, man. But you know so much. I want to know more about what I've done because I just show up. And
Okay, Ray.
yeah,
Time, unfortunately, is not on our side. Time is.
I don't
ticking
like
away.
that.
So I'm going to jump in now and
Please.
say that The Weeper came out in 2003, your debut album. And for any followers who are going, 2003, well, that sounds a long time ago to come up with a debut. But again, if you listen to this interview, you can see how you've been such a very, very busy man in demand with the likes of Whitney Houston, with the likes, Diana Reeves, the rest of it. Everybody wants your services. And so this is why we're very gracious that you've taken time to come and talk to us today and our followers. But ready for this?
Yes.
Word has it, just have a quick look around. Word has it that there's a follow-up album in the pipeline.
Yeah.
Maybe out in summer 2022. Can you
Will.
briefly, if you can, tell us, just give us a little bit of a taster. What can we expect with this new album?
I tell you what, you have just directed the rest of the record. I've cut a few things, but I haven't played on 2 of those yet. And that was the process with The Weeper too. It was absorbed, but it's gonna be as honest as The Weeper, a little more diverse. It will have at least 4 covers, but they're not, as you heard on that, they're not copies.
Right.
In fact, on The Weeper, when I did Work to Do, if somebody in there asked, can you play the original? I said, why? I've heard that
Exactly.
30 years ago. I just want the juice out of that. I just want you do you remember how funky that song was? That's all you have to remember. Phil Perry we had to try to remember. We're not even sure if we said all the lyrics right. You call those beasts and we together carve these beautiful things. This next record and especially because of what you guys have reminded me of, you kind of woke up the giant. This is a blessing to be with you. It'll be another passionate. It will touch on Latin. It will go deep into soul. It will go deep into jazz. I miss George. I miss McCoy Tyner, who I met.
Oh, absolutely.
Didn't get to play with him, but I miss so many people. Ricky Lawson left me. Everything matters here.
Yeah.
Everything matters. And you know what? I would like you to be a part of this in some kind of way, because you don't know what fire you lit inside me.
That's so good.
You don't know. You don't know.
I can tell you that this is my den of iniquity I'm talking from now, okay?
You got it.
This is my wall of CDs and all my favorite CDs. You've actually got a space up there where I took the Weeper out of today. I've actually sacrificed one of the CDs underneath to leave a gap ready for your new album to go in there. Now, I'm gonna put it to you now, Monsieur Fuller. I'm gonna put it to you. We would like to extend an invitation for you to rejoin us next year when the new album comes out.
Oh, we'd love it.
Come and join us, and we would love to have the premiere of even just 3 tracks of it, because we are so excited and we're loving talking to yourself now. Would you honor us and come back again and talk to us again?
I couldn't think of anything more beautiful and more inspirational. I couldn't think. That's the pinnacle for me.
That is
beautiful. There it is.
Ray.
The only thing can top that. The only thing can top that, if by some grace I could sit there and sit in that music area right there and oh my God. Because in high school it was tough. And I stayed at my teacher's house one time for a month, my music teacher. And he said, "You never slept, Ray." He had the best collection of Joe Sample, even Ndugu stuff, who became a best friend, George Duke stuff, who became a best friend. That stuff, I just had my own way. And I'm looking at Roger's wall going crazy. I know what's in there. It's got to be in there.
Well, George Duke has got amazing selection all the way down the wall down there. Right, I love all his stuff. Joe Sample, that's Joe there. I shook Joe Sample's hand after a concert once in England, and he could see me being electric in the audience. And as he walked by, I was the only person, and I leant forward and I said, "You are the governor." And I shook his hand and that. So one day when you're in England, I'm going to shake your hand, sir.
Oh, nothing would be more honorable. Last thing about England and George Duke. You put these things in my head, just remind me. So getting ready to put my guitars on my record. Some I did live, but some I just had to do later because I didn't feel in that pocket enough. We played the Jazz Cafe.
Yeah.
With George Duke and I think it was Michael Manson, Rayford Griffin on drums. And I cannot remember who, his friend that was on keyboards, who George loved. God, he passed away. Anyway, and we did 2 weeks of heck there. I ain't gonna say hell, but it was heck because they were dueling Rayford Griffin from Jean-Luc Ponty and all. It was just the Speedy Gonzalez guys, and I'm the warm and fuzzy guy. So I had to get in there and I had to, put a turbocharger on, and I did. And when I came out of work, hitting that, I think it was about a week, at Jazz Cafe, I went straight into the studio.
Yeah.
Did not pass go, did not collect $200. I went straight to the studio. And that's what you hear.
Followers of Jazz Across the Pond, I know Mr. G, I know myself, we could chat for a week to you. But unfortunately, the curtain is slowly beginning to close on this. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to go out and buy this album. If you don't add this to your collection, you're not a jazz fan. You got to go out and buy it, and keep watching Jazz Across the Pond, because you heard it yourself. This man is going to come back and get us a few tracks, and we're going to talk about it. Ray, thank you so much for taking time out to come and chat to our followers. It has been an absolute pleasure. We are going to finish the interview off. We're going to play the Ivan Lins. We're going to play She Walks the Earth. Ray, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us, sir.
I'm so honored. Thank you. Thank you both.
Say goodnight, Kevin.
Bye, Roger and A-Ray. Thanks for
Yes.
sharing time with us today, brother. Enjoyed it.
Love you guys. Thank you so much.
From everybody here, from Jazz Across the Pond, take care. Good night.
Bye, UK. Bye.